Hi everyone, this is Stephanie Scarborough. I just wanted to give you all a quick update today on the April 2019 Visa Bulletin. I'm going to cover only India employment based in this call because the Visa Bulletin is so comprehensive. I find breaking down or breaking up the the bulletin into smaller parts is quite easier for people to understand. So, and also you can focus on the video posting on exactly the subject that matters to you, and you don't have to listen to an hour or two of me going through the entire bulletin on family-based numbers, employment-based numbers for EB1, 2, and 3. So let's just talk today about India employment-based, and namely, we're going to focus in this video on final action dates and dates of filing for India EB1 first preference category. First preference category covers EB1A, B, and C, which would be outstanding professors and researchers, extraordinary ability, and managers and executives. So let's just dive right in. The bulletin has been out here for a couple of days, and we're going to look right now at EB1 India. So first we'll talk about final action in India EB1. Final action for India EB1 has not changed from the previous month. So 22 February 2017 are the same exact dates that were published in March of 2019 Visa Bulletin. So it's important to understand why that's occurring. Demand is quite high for India EB1. So, even the State Department said, had announced that they don't anticipate India EB1 moving along between now and the end of May 2019, more than 0 to 3 months, just based on demand. So here you have March of 2019 bulletin was February 22nd, 2017, and the April 2019 bulletin. So this is April 2019 bulletin covers the period from April 1st to April 30th, 2019. We're also stuck now at February 22nd, 2017. What that means is if your priority date precedes February 22nd, 2017, then your priority date is what we call current, based on the current cutoff date of February 22nd, 2017. If you fail to act in March of 2019, well, April's your chance because nothing's changing in April. So you can file, if your priority date precedes February 22nd, 2017, you can file your 485 adjustment of status, or you could immigrant visa process at a U.S. consulate abroad. So EB1 numbers have remained static for India. So I wanted to talk for a moment about the dates for filing. So when you look at a visa bulletin, you see two categories. You see final action dates that we've reviewed here. Final action dates are, the final numbers, and if your priority date precedes the cutoff date, then you can file your adjustment of status or get your immigrant visa number. But a couple of years ago, the State Department started adding this Section B, which was dates for filing. You'll see this under the family-based and under employment-based. And what dates for filing simply is an opportunity for you to, for the State Department actually through their National Visa Center, to actually start collecting documentation ahead of time so that hopefully by the time your priority date becomes current, meaning it precedes the cutoff date under the final action date column, then the Department of State and the National Visa Center have substantially completed your immigrant visa processing. So under the dates for filing, I should note that dates for filing is also sometimes used by USCIS to allow for advanced filing, for instance, of adjustment of status, when processing times are extremely slow. So recently, as recently as, up until February of 2019 and for several months preceding, I think it started in October, the USCIS would allow you to file an adjustment of status based on the dates for filing. And that simply allowed the service centers and the field offices to get a little jump on processing. You couldn't get your green card until your priority date is current, but the final action date is kind of an opportunity to get a jump on the processing. So if your immigrant visa processing meaning as opposed to being in the United States and filing an adjustment of status and staying in the U.S. and getting your green card here, if you're instead going to the U.S. consulate and immigrant visa processing, do take advantage of these numbers. Do take advantage of the October, so you have November, December, January, February, you have almost 4 months advance time to start sending in documents to the National Visa Center to allow them to process. Take advantage of that time as you can. So I like immigrant visa processing under the current scenario, and I'll explain why. Namely because adjustment of status applications are taking, these are just a snapshot. This is Atlanta, Georgia, and San Francisco processing times for the field offices in those two jurisdictions. As you can see, it's taking between 13.5 and 25 months to process in Atlanta, 18 months to 22 months to process, and a 485 in San Francisco. So what that means is if your priority date is current today and you're allowed to file an adjustment of status, even if the EB1 numbers move more quickly, and let's say EB1 becomes current or your priority date becomes current in the next 6 months, it won't really matter because you still have to go through the I-485 processing time. So while you'll be eligible to get your green card, you'll still be awaiting the field office's processing of your I-485, and that can be quite frustrating. Right now, we look at the priority dates and say, well, the priority dates are backlogged, meaning I can't get my green card today if I'm EB1 India, and unless I filed before 22 February 2017. So, let the I-485 process, and then I'll get my green card whenever my priority date is current. And that's not always the case. Why are we backlogged? So family-based cases have had a long-standing policy of having interviews, and rightly so. They check the bona fides of a marriage. They check that the person is admissible, and make sure that the marriage is valid, things like that. So family-based, the field offices have been accustomed to doing that. EB and employment-based interviews are fairly new for the service center, the field offices. So what the field offices have done is just kind of slow the process down. Now they've been hit with all these employment-based, and December 2018, for instance, these numbers were up to 30.5 months in Atlanta for EB5 processing, and 22.5 months for San Francisco. So from December 2018 until March of 2019, so just in almost 4 short months, we've seen Atlanta improve by a few months, and we have seen San Francisco only improve by about a half month. So they're moving quite slowly. The moral of the story there is is that adjustment of status may not be your best bet and your quickest bet. If you have an approved I-140, you could look at immigrant visa processing, because look, if I'm immigrant visa processing and I have a September of 2017 priority date, I can start sending my documents into the National Visa Center today. The National Visa Center, for sure, they take about 12 weeks to process, 11 plus weeks minimum to process through the immigrant visa processing. But if your priority date is September of 2017, you've already gotten your documents in, and then you're waiting for a consular interview. If you have your consular interview and your priority date is current, you're going to get your green card. Most consular interviews are scheduled within, usually after the National Visa Center finishes, about 60 to 90 days at the most, I would say, is what I've seen in the consulates and the State Department offices that we've worked with. So let's say it's going to take 11 to 12 weeks for the National Visa Center to process your immigrant visa petition, and the affidavits of support or whatever else you might need for your petition. Probably won't need an affidavit of support if it's an employment-based. But all the documentation is sent in, your police record, your passport, everything that the National Visa Center would require. If you're interested in finding out what they require, by the way, it's very, very easy. Travel.state.gov, and the National Visa Center has a very clear list of all of the documents they require at travel.state.gov. I'll put the link in the description below. So I guess my point is, even if the National Visa Center takes 4 to 5 months to process your application documents, then for immigrant visa processing, then it takes 60 or 90 days to schedule an appointment at the U.S. consulate. You're still far ahead of the 13 to 25 months, 13 to 25 and a half months that it's currently taking to process an adjustment of status in Atlanta or San Francisco, for instance. And some of the posts are even slower. So really, one of the things to do when you're considering if your I-140 is approved, you have your priority date that's sitting there, and you haven't filed your I-45 yet, one of the things to consider is, would I be better off immigrant visa processing based on the dates for filing chart as opposed to adjusting status? It's a real consideration for you. Something to talk to your legal advisors about, or hold a consultation with one of our advisors, because that timeline can be very important. You could actually save months, if not even in some cases, you may even be able to save up to a year of processing time as opposed immigrant visa processing as opposed to adjusting status. Keep that in mind. I can see a scenario approaching where it gets very frustrating for people as EB1 becomes current for India and for the other chargeability areas where we're right here. January of 2018, we've moved up to on all chargeability areas. So imagine that becomes current, and then you have to wait a year for your green card because the adjustment of status processing times are so slow, and you're waiting for an interview with a field office. Incidentally, just the third week of March, or at the end of the second week of March, really, USCIS announced a potential plan to examine consolidating field offices. So we're looking today at this very, very long backlog in adjustment of status interviews. If they're talking about consolidating field offices, and no specific plan was put in place, but say in Florida where you have 4 field offices, where you have Miami, Orlando, Jacksonville, and Tampa, you have 4 field offices. If they're talking about consolidating those field offices, what are they talking about doing? What if they moved Jacksonville and Tampa and consolidated in Orlando and Miami? Those offices now have to staff up, and those offices also have to transfer the case files. So I can see a scenario where adjustment of status even slows down more if they do that. By the way, I think it's a horrible idea, except where there's waste. And right now we have, for instance, our Jacksonville office has people traveling to the field office from Tallahassee, which is several hours away, Gainesville, some southern Georgia and Brunswick, Georgia. People are traveling quite a long distance. Where will the South Georgia people go? Will they come to Atlanta? Atlanta is 13 and a half to 25 months for an adjustment of status for employment-based, and how long will that be extended? So I guess my point is the propensity of the current administration to chill legal immigration is having very real effect on processing times. So if they consolidate USCIS offices, I would be concerned about the impact on this already long delayed I-45 processing. So I like right now, if you're filing a new case right now, an I-140, then I like the idea of keeping open the possibility of immigrant visa processing because of the extra time you get for under the dates for filing chart, and also because it's much faster to book a consular interview at this point. However, every scenario is going to be different, so please talk to your legal counsel or meet with a qualified immigration attorney before you make that decision. But the times do tell the tale, so make a smart decision. So I just wanted to, point out what happens when your priority date is current, just really quickly. This is actually an adjustment of status approval notice, but I use it as a way of showing you your priority date here is listed on an I-797. Right in the middle, 7/29/2016. So this individual actually was approved for their green card because their priority date was current. The priority date is 22 February 2017 for chargeability of India, EB1, let's say. Clearly this person's priority date is current, and he or she can get a green card or has already gotten a green card. This notice was December 6, 2018. You see they were granted. So this person, took a little over a year and a half to get their green card, which is pretty typical. They actually did have an interview and had to wait about 90 days after the interview to get the green card issued once the priority date was current. So, even after your interview, you do have to wait and in some cases to have the green card issued if your priority date is retrogressed when you go to your interview. So I want to bring up, what does it mean that India EB1 is retrogressed? And as I mentioned, the EB1 manager executive that said, let's say, that was filed before February 22nd, 2017, is now eligible for green card issuance. So if you're in the United States and you've already filed your I-485 with a priority date of February 22nd or earlier, then, you know, really at this point, if you haven't had your I-485 interview, that's what you're waiting for, is your adjustment of status interview. If your interview is scheduled, make sure you don't move it. Try to make it and not change it, because we don't know if the priority dates are going to retrogress. Probably not going to retrogress further, but just keep your interview. If you go to your interview, let's say you went to your adjustment of status interview at the beginning of April, you'll probably have your green card within, you know, 30 to 60 days after the interview, provided your medicals are up to date and there's no request for evidence and no criminal issues that cause inadmissibility or anything like that. But just keep in mind those I-485 processing times that are up to 25 months, depending on the field office. And if you haven't had your interview yet and you're somewhere in the queue at 6 months of your I-485 processing, then I would be concerned that you're going to potentially wait up to 25 months for your adjustment of status processing. So basically, that's what EB5 retrogression means. I don't see EB1. I don't see EB1 India becoming current even till the end of the fiscal year. I don't see that happening. I don't see it even increasing more than just a few months over the next 6 months. So we're at February 2017. We'll just see it creeping along. It won't move. The State Department has already said it likely won't move far, maybe up to 3 months before June, say the June Bulletin. And then June Bulletin, we'll see where we stand. But June, July, August, and September, that's all that we had after that remaining in the fiscal year. And I can imagine we probably won't see it increase more than 90 days or 120 days during that time. So maybe we'll get to June of 2017 by the end of the fiscal year. So just keep that in mind as you're, you know, planning for your family and your adjustment of status processing. Just give you an example of, this is a receipt notice for a multinational executive. And that, so here's an example, this individual's priority date. This is an India chargeable EB1 case, EB1C in fact. You can tell because it says 203B1C, multinational executive or manager. The priority date's right smack in the middle there, May 31st, 2017. That was the date of filing of the I-140. And so we'll go back here and look. Remember, we said that the priority date, cutoff date here, is February 22nd, 2017. So it's February 22nd, 2017. Our individual is May 31st of 2017. So I've actually advised this person it's probably going to be, you know, 4 or 5 months before they become current. I don't expect them to become current before June of 2017. In fact, what we'll probably see is this case and cases similar with similar priority dates of May of 2017 becoming current sometime in August at the earliest, possibly September. We'll just have to watch as the visa bulletin is released. The State Department has basically said they don't see this increasing or improving over the next, at least until June. So I wouldn't expect a major leap of 5 to 6 months on the priority dates from February to June or July of 2017. That would make this person, in order to make them eligible for their green card, they would have to leap ahead to, the priority date would have to be June 1st, 2017 or later, the cutoff date rather. So here we have the May 31st, 2017 priority date. And I should note that if you haven't had your interview yet, you're waiting for your interview, then even if your priority date is current and becomes current, say in June or July, if you haven't had your interview yet, you'll likely be scheduled for an interview and have to wait for that interview process. So it could, very likely, if you have a May of 2017 priority date, your priority date is not going to become current until August or September, I would say, based on the way things are moving. And since there had been no priority date movement for EB1 India in March 2019 and April 2019. And then also, if you haven't had your interview, this person's probably going to be backlogged for another few months. So maybe we'll see this a May of 2017 priority date mature and get the green card issued sometime in October, possibly November, depending on what we see. I'm really anxious to see the June 2019 visa bulletin to see how see if we see any movement there. I don't have much hope for the May bulletin. I think we'll see that move ever so slightly over the next month. So, you know, if at all. So I'm not holding out hope for it to advance to May 31st, 2017 or June 1st, 2017 to help this person. So, but that's generally what you're looking for. Look at your priority date, go to the Visa Bulletin website on travel.state.gov or just Google Visa Bulletin. Don't go to visabulletin.com, it's not a government site. Go to travel.state.gov where the Visa Bulletin is posted. Compare your priority date to the final action date under your chargeability area, in this case India, and see if you're current or you're, you know, kind of estimate when you might become current to start planning. And if you're not current yet, just kind of watch the timelines. Thank you very much. This has been Stephanie Scarborough. Again, this video is not to replace any legal advice. This is just information purposes only. Always consult your qualified immigration attorney. Thanks for joining. And if you have any questions, do post them in the comments and I'll get back to you, or go to scarboroughLaw.com where you can enter a contact form and I'll be happy to answer questions. Thanks for joining. I'll update you on other categories shortly.